The next proposed amendment is 7C to the 7th plank of the platform, which would remove the third bullet item, which reads as follows: we define marriage as the union of one man and one woman. Would all delegates in favor of the proposed amendment please rise or raise your hands?
Deleting that? Deleting? Read it again. Say it again.
The amendment would propose to strike the third bullet item from the 7th plank of the platform. The third bullet item which the amendment proposes to strike is as follows: we define marriage as the union of one man and one woman. Would all delegates in support of the proposed amendment please rise or raise your hands? Be seated, please. Would all delegates opposed to the proposed amendment please rise or raise your hands? Please be seated. The nays clearly have it. The amendment fails. By deleting the language, will ensure state spending never grows faster than per capita income, and would replace that language with the following: requires a balanced budget and no spending increases without a 2/3 majority vote of the state legislature. Would all those delegates in favor of the proposed amendment please rise or raise your hands? Be seated. All those delegates opposed, the ayes clearly have it, and the motion is adopted. Next proposed amendment is 8C to plank 8, which would add the following list of initiatives. We support the return to sound money and gold and silver as legal tender, abolishing the IRS, Department of Education, Department of Homeland Security, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, and the Federal Reserve. The convention will come to order, please. Conducting an audit of the gold at Fort Knox and all other U.S. gold, getting the U.S. out of the United Nations. Opposing the law of the Sea Treaty, opposing any attempt at global taxation, opposing a North American Union and an integration of the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, opposing the AMRO or any common currency between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, repealing the 1934 National Firearms Act, the 1968 Guns Control Act, and all other federal firearm laws. Would all those delegates in favor of the proposed amendment please rise or raise your hands? Be seated. All those delegates opposed, please rise or raise your hands. Be seated. The nays have it, and the amendment fails. The proposed amendment would delete the fourth bullet, conform the state tax code to the federal tax code to achieve fairness and equity without continually increasing the tax burden on our citizens, and would replace it with the following: abolishing the federal and state income tax. Would all those delegates in favor of the proposed amendment please rise or raise your hands?
Now raise your feet.
Be seated. Would all those delegates opposed to the proposed amendment please rise or raise your hands? Be seated. The nays have it, and the amendment fails. The next, the last. The last proposed amendment is to delete the initiative which reads, we support legislation that would require a photo identification to be eligible to vote in the state of Maine, and would replace it with the following: we believe the federal government should enforce the U.S. borders and not impose further restrictions on U.S. citizens as a result of their failure to secure the borders. We oppose the Real ID Act and any attempt by the U.S. government to unconstitutionally require U.S. citizens to carry or obtain a national ID card. Would all proposed amendment, please rise or raise your hands. Be seated, please. All delegates opposed to the proposed amendment, please rise or raise your hands. Be seated. The nays have it, and the amendment fails.